There was a time, not too long ago, when Hollywood was enamored with Bob Iger, to the point that when he returned as Disney CEO last year, there was practically celebrations in the streets in some quarters.
I am so happy right now I may actually cry. Bob Chapek has been fired by Disney. He's out. Bob Iger, Big Papa Iger, is back, running the company again, at least for a little while.
Over the last few months, however, the industry has started to recognize what honestly should have been blatantly obvious to everyone years ago. Namely, that Big Papa Iger was never the hero he was made out to be. Most damningly, CNBC recently published a feature-length exposé breaking down just how dysfunctional the transition from Iger to Chapek and back to Iger really was. It is based on conversations with more than 24 people who worked closely with Iger and Chapek, and it does not put Iger in a positive light. On the contrary, he comes across as a power-hungry, malignant narcissist who undermined and even sabotaged Chapek at every turn. There is enough to cover here that we have to do it over the course of several videos, but in this first one, we will break down how Iger never intended for Chapek to really run the company, why the board didn't stop Iger when the alarm bells should have been ringing, and finally, the rumor we heard of why Iger deemed it necessary to step back in the first place. First things first, I commend the article for disseminating new information to the public, but this should not be taken as the end-all of everything that happened at Disney during this time frame. Both key stories and vital context is missing, so we will have to fill in some blanks as we go, both in terms of rumors that were circulating at the time, as well as confirmed stories. With that, let's begin with one glaring omission, namely why Iger left in the first place. The article begins with asserting, after pushing back his retirement 4 times, Bob Iger finally made the leap. On February 25th of 2020, he announced he would step down as Disney's CEO. His hand-picked successor, Bob Chapek, then Disney's Parks chairman, would take over the day-to-day job of running the company effective immediately. But why did he push back his retirement 4 times before that? The article later specified, Iger kept delaying his retirement. In 2013, 2014, and then twice in 2017, he renewed his contract after saying he intended to walk away. By 2013, Iger was already approaching an age where many CEOs choose to retire. He had already been the head of Disney for 8 years. The Marvel and Pixar acquisitions were already certified hits, and Lucasfilm looked like it was going to follow suit at this time. Things were still going up, and up. Everything he had set out to do had worked out great. If Iger had retired then, or in the years after, he would have gone out on top, and he would have been remembered as the best CEO in Disney history. Yet, he kept pushing his retirement date back. The article never goes into any more detail about why he kept promising to retire only to change his mind, and why he, a decade later, is still the CEO of Disney. The closest thing we get to an answer is an implication. A quote is lifted from Iger's book The Ride of a Lifetime, in which Iger recalls watching his predecessor, Disney's former CEO Michael Eisner, leave the Disney lot on his last day at the company. It's one of those moments, I imagine, when it's hard to know who exactly you are without this attachment and title and role that has defined you for so long. The inclusion of that quote suggests that being the head of Disney is a vital part of Iger's self-image. Oh, as indicated by his book, he'd leave Disney if he was becoming President of the United States instead, but short of that, he'll have to be dragged away from Disney kicking and screaming, because he never wanted to leave. So why did he? Clearly he was beloved enough that he could have stayed as long as he wanted, so why leave in the first place? And why, when he eventually did leave, did it happen so suddenly? The article never answers this, but we heard some rumors that may fill in some blanks. The article writes, in 2017, according to people familiar with the matter, Iger first told Chapek that he was in the running to be his potential successor. The vetting process for CEO would begin with Chapek flying across the country to meet one-on-one with board members. not unlike contestants' hometown dates in Disney's hit reality show The Bachelor. Iger had gone through a similar process, taking 15 meetings with directors before securing the CEO position in 2005. But Chapek never did the meetings. Iger agreed to buy the majority of Fox's assets in a $71 billion deal and renewed his contract as a condition of the purchase, pushing back any talk of succession. Still, you'd think that when Iger eventually got back to the idea of retiring, that extensive vetting process would be back on, right? Wrong. In January of 2020, Iger told Chapek the plan was back on. This time, Iger told him that instead of the one-on-one board interviews, Disney's lead independent director, Susan Arnold, would be in touch. Days later, Susan Arnold delivered the news to Chapek over lunch at the Rotunda, Disney's executive dining room. So, just to reiterate what happened here, according to sources within Disney, in 2017, Chapek was about to be vetted for the position of new CEO, presumably as one of several candidates, but then it all boiled away. Then, 3 years later, out of the blue, Chapek is one day told that the job is his. No interviews, no tests, no nothing. The job is simply given to him, no questions asked. How does that happen? Well, as it turned out, it happened because Iger wanted it so. The article reads, Iger never consulted anyone who worked directly for Chapek in the run-up to naming him CEO, according to people familiar with the matter. He had simply pegged Chapek as someone who would accept his somewhat unusual succession plan, in which Chapek would serve as both CEO and CEO in training, while Iger remained his boss and ran creative endeavors for 22 months as executive chairman. So in other words, Iger unilaterally decided that Chapek would become the new CEO, but with training wheels, and that he, Bob Iger, would ultimately be the one controlling the ship. This is most unusual, and normally this is where the board would need to step in and recruit a new CEO by themselves, without the involvement of the current one, because he would have shown that he is clearly too attached to his office that he can possibly be fit for it. So why did the board let this fly? Well, that would be because Disney doesn't have a board. Or that is, they do on paper, but not in practice. And if you're a Disney shareholder, this is where you need to freak out. The article reads, by 2019, Iger had personally selected every member of the board, which is surprisingly lacking in media and entertainment experience. Iger is personally close with several of them, including Nike executive chairman Mark Parker and General Motors CEO Mary Barra. In addition, the wife of another director, Michael Froman, then vice chairman of MasterCard and now president of the Council on Foreign Relations, had been housemates with Iger's wife, Willow Bay, at the University of Pennsylvania. Functionally, this means that Disney does not have a board, and this is a pretty major deal. Normally, the board are the ones ultimately in charge of the company. They represent the shareholders, the owners, and it's their job to hire the CEO, tell him what he is expected to do, monitor that he does it in a satisfactory manner, and if he does not, replace him with someone more suitable for the job. That is what the board is supposed to do, but the board can't do that when Iger has stacked it with his friends and sycophants. With the exception of major institutional investors like BlackRock, Iger answers to no one, and isn't so much the CEO of Disney so much as he is the dictator of Disney. And all of a sudden, without warning, that dictator decided he needed to step down as CEO, appoint someone else, yet still retain control. Furthermore, this happened so suddenly it took even his closest peers at Disney by complete surprise. The article reads, Iger's decision to step down as CEO not only shocked the entertainment and media worlds, it took even his close associates by surprise. Disney's head of streaming, Kevin Mayer, who many outsiders had pegged as Iger's likely replacement, found out minutes before Iger's public announcement. But again, why would Iger do that? Why would he, after delaying it for years, all of a sudden step down, but not step out? The article gives no answer to this, other than that Iger figured the time was right, and that he was convinced Chapek was the right caretaker to continue his legacy, especially since he would be there watching over him for at least 22 months to come. But still, no good explanation is given for why Iger so suddenly decided now is the time and forced Chapek through, without Chapek ever being properly vetted. We heard some rumors which might help fill in that gap though. Let's leave the article for the moment and entertain a rumor we first heard years ago. Longtime watchers will have heard us speak of this before. I stress this is a rumor. It has never been substantiated anywhere, therefore you should take it with a grain of salt. But in light of recent revelations, it should perhaps not be dismissed outright. First off, I never heard any rumors about why Iger spoke about retiring as early as 2013. That could have been pressure from his wife, for all I know. But around 2017, I started hearing from a source with alleged ties to Disney that Iger was beginning to lose favor with, not the board, but some prominent and sizable shareholders. Because already then, the Lucasfilm acquisition was way behind where it was scheduled to be. Late 2017 was also when the Fox acquisition happened, which Iger overpaid double-digit billions for, and by 2020, it should have been clear to any sizable shareholder not taken over by the streaming madness that it was doomed to be an utter disaster. It was, allegedly, in order to satiate this or these shareholders and to avoid a rebellion that really could have seen him kicked out of the company for good, that Iger so quickly and unexpectedly stepped back, appointing Chapek to fill his role while he still retained the real power in the background. So, why Chapek? Why did Iger choose Chapek instead of someone like Kevin Mayer or Peter Rice? The article reads, "The board felt the leadership styles of both men were too brash, according to people familiar with some of the director's thinking. But as we already saw, at this time the board had been stacked with Iger sycophants, and they didn't think a damn thing lest Iger told them to think it first. Some Disney executives have privately speculated that Iger chose Chapek because he wouldn't rival him in either charisma or celebrity. Or, more cynically, because he was unlikely to eclipse Iger's glittering record at the company. That seems more plausible. And it suggests that what Iger really needed wasn't a new CEO to permanently run the company, but a stooge. Someone to keep the seat warm for him until he deemed the time was right to return to his rightful place as the CEO of Disney. The problem, though, he quickly found, was rather than being an obedient lapdog like the ones who made up Disney's board, Chapek intended to actually run the company, and to do so his way, not Iger's way. In the next video, we will explore when and how Iger realized that where his personal interest was concerned, he had made a mistake in appointing Chapek, and how he sabotaged him every step of the way. You do not want to miss that, so please smash that like, help share this video, subscribe and indicate you want notifications on all videos. And then check back for updates regularly anyway, because it would appear that this platform isn't sending notifications like it used to. Case in point, every day we hear from regular watchers who are surprised to see that we have an interview with Graham Hancock, because they were never notified of it. Also, check out that interview while you're at it. Whether you think he's onto something, or that he's another von Däniken, there will be something of interest in there for you. With that, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments.